Steven Seagal, because he's a gal now.
2,000 years ago and more, Julius Caesar, at the head of his Roman legions, came, saw, and conquered the land of the Gauls. It is an historical fact that Caesar had a lot of Gaul, but he did not have it all. One little region held out, a fortified village surrounded by the entrenched Romans.
Every single Asterix comic, movie and cartoon about the famous characters of René Goscinny begins with these lines in the past 60 years. Back in my days, they could do decent comics! You cannot compare it to the US superheroes and the Japanese mechadrama. Schoolgirl does really nothing and tentacles pornography miracles, but French comic culture was also very productive. Okay, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are thinking you were an otaku as well back then, but don't panic, I'm really proud of knowing and watching Neon Genesis Evangelion, Serial Experiments Raid, High Banner Handmaid, Ultimate Survivor Culture, or even Junjo Romantica.
Okay, maybe the last one is a different case.
René had a typical awful way like anyone in the past century. Born in a Polish Jewish family in Paris, he spent his childhood in Argentina. He lost his father very early and worked in a tire recovery factory, but thanks to his talent, he was soon asked for illustrations at an advertising agency. After they moved to his brother in New York with his mother, World War II happened and he joined the French army. He became a senior corporal and designed posters for the army. His first more famous job was a co-work on Lucky Luke with his friend Maurice, and they worked together until René's death, but his very first real success was Asterix. He also created On Papa and Is No Good, one about the French colonization of the US and one other about the anti-hero Grand Vizier who wants to take over the place of the Caliphate the whole time. In my country they changed the title of Caliphate to Sultan, so children didn't have to learn anything new. Besides that, Is No Good was one of the most important cartoons in my childhood. René took care of his more successful comics until his death. He died just a few months before the Atari 2600 was released in Europe. The series was introduced in Pilot magazine before it could get its own release. The character design was created by Albert Hidorzo. First he wanted to make a boring strong gal here, but splitting that he created the short intelligent Asterix and the huge kind-hearted Obelix, creating one of the most iconic duos of entertainment industry. After René passed away, Albert carried the series alone and he retired in 2011. After that he released only 2 illustrations only after the Charlie Hebdo incident, giving respect for the victims. Today the series belongs to Jules Ferry and he releases a new book every second year. The most important weapon René used in his comics is humor. He's very funny, and of course in Asterix there are a lot of national stereotypes as well. Even the fonts are different with each nation, sometimes even with some character as well. There were so many puns in Asterix that they were not allowing translation for a long time. Talking about Atari games, the success of cartoons and the very positive international reception were the main reason for motivation, and of course the wish for profit. Asterix cartoons had their first golden age in the late 60s and early 70s. The new wave only began in the middle of the 80s, to be followed by live action movies. Even today they make CGI movies about the franchise. Even if you don't rush for watching the cartoons, I recommend the scene which is parody of the Roman bureaucracy in the 12 Tasks. Because of my daily job, this is about my life.
Where do you think you are, by Jupiter? Appliance window number 1, left-hand corridor, last door on the right. Got it?
There is no door on the right.
Consult the floor plan on the 6th floor and close the door.
Can't make it out at all.
Oh, no, here it is. Window number 1 is on the ground floor, first corridor on the right.
What is your business?
We just want a copy of permit number A38.
You have been misdirected. You have to apply at window number 2.
Next door to this one?
No, that one is window 8. I can't remember where they put number 2. Ask...
Last time anyone saw it, it was somewhere on the 3rd floor. Corridor B, door 6, Mr. Prefect, sir.
Oh, well, you know her. The kind who's always got to show up. And mind you, she can't even afford to keep a slave or so.
Miss...
She sold off her Iberian, claiming that she preferred to do her housework herself. But I know that her husband's financial situation...
Excuse me?
Oh, can't you see I'm busy? Filled in the blue form.
The blue form? No.
Then how do you think you're going to get permit A38?
Where can I get hold of this blue form?
Window 1.
I've been there.
She's at lunch. But you could apply to window 35. Ask them down at the desk.
For some fun facts. In 1988, the only Asterix Center theme park was opened. In 1991, the duo was put on the cover of Time, and the very first French satellite got the name Asterix as well. The duo is often represented as the opponent of globalization and the symbol of independence. I have only one question left. What is the connection between Asterix and the Tasmanian Devil? Steve Wojta was a productive game developer, and he even made browser-centered games after the millennium, but like many others, he began his career at Apple and Atari. Unfortunately, his games were published around 1933, so the crash broke his career too. The most famous game he did, which is also really overrated by collectors, is Quadrant, which had a really short human voice integrated. Quadrant. Today even I am able to put a longer wave sample in the code, and pros are even able to do more horrifying things, but back in the day that was considered unique. Since I'm planning to introduce this game in a review, I don't want to spoil it more. He had a never-released game called Garfield. The ROM was released only after Jim Davis, the original owner of the license, agreed. As far as Wojta games are concerned, they all have detailed title screens, and here you get a really strange gameplay. You only score for catching burgers, so if you waste enough time on the first or fourth screens, you score better. You know the joke that a journalist is paid for what he writes down, but a good journalist is paid for what he does not write down. There are some really serious scenes. I can't decide he had too much drugs or just not enough ideas. You can progress by hopping instead of walking, that is really acrobatic from a fat cat like this. While ducking, it just melts like a snowman because of the lack of sprite animation. With the 2600 you build the sprites from the bottom, so if you use the X or Epsilon register for the height, you can easily create this effect. But before I would go too deep into technical aspects again, let's go for the main dish. I'm really into a tasty warthog with Roman wine. The rising popularity of Looney Tunes makes it no surprise they asked Wojta for making a game about the berserk explosive Thor the Demon. I can't really think of any better character for a game. He's super cool and crazy, he crashes through walls, he rushes into you and tears you into pieces. This idea cannot be wasted! Okay, let's get into it. Wojta was really successful at recycling his own ideas. The lozenge-shaped border was already done in Quadrant, the score design, the life indicators facing in the player's direction, the sprite of the burger and the stretching of the player's sprite when being killed are really easy to recognize, but this is acceptable. If you take Radarlock and Solaris, they are both wonderful games, even knowing Doug Neubauer recycled everything he could. On the other hand, Taz is the most basic arcade style game. In every line you get food or dynamite, food gives you points, dynamite kills you. Because there can be only one item per line, if you are very careful and slow, you can stay at the bottom and move as little as possible, but you will lose your head soon anyway for sure. I'm very familiar with the abilities of the console and don't think this is the maximum that our protagonist should be a permanent tornado. Even the life indicator as well, and anyway, how the hell do you blow up a mindless marsupial that gives birth for 30 offsprings, but only the 4 strongest reach the pouch? Atari was very known for not allowing the creators to show their names and giving a chance for the concurrency to grab them. Easter eggs of Whizball of Fairchild, Channel F and Adventure of Atari are well known, but you can find the name of the creator in Taz as well after powering the console and press select 22 times. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15... 05, darling! 05! Where was I? So after you press the button 22 times and you reach the Crazy Wave text, press the fire button and it will show the name of Wojta. The Crazy Wave is only about making things a lot faster, and it grinds the player that already survived that the ice cream sticks and dynamite really look similar. They wanted to release the game in Europe as well. But knowing that Taz really had his success in the 90s, and when the game was released the character only appeared in 5 Looney Tunes episodes, they decided to make the product more Europe compatible, so Asterix came in mind, who was, as I already mentioned, in turbo mode. It's none of my business, but in France the Atari 2600 has failed because of the 8 colors second palette, so maybe Asterix was not the best choice. The game is almost the same. Asterix looks like the head of a donkey that collects kettles, helmets, shields after a victorious battle. So he can sell them on eBay! And you have to avoid the harps. And that's really not just a lame joke. Our enemy is Cacophonix, the bard with no talent, and his singing is just hurting our hero. The game besides is not different. Pardon, instead of Crazy Wave you get Obelix Wave, and from that you will look like a bag of potato instead of a donkey, and you have to turn after food, so even the power-up sprites from Taz were not changed. The game about Obelix begins with a suspiciously detailed title screen as well, so you may think maybe just the sprites were changed with the so-called top-quality porn games. But fortunately, it's a completely different game, programmed by Suki Lee, who also made In this game we control Asterix again, who teases the Roman soldiers wandering around. Obelix minds his own business at the top, and as a human catapult throws stones as you press fire. Tactics are really easy. With Asterix you punch the soldiers so they go pale white, and while they are stunned Obelix throws a stone to squish them, but beware, if it smashes you, you will become a gel-flavored pancake. If you miss that, they will become bloodthirsty berserkers following your every step and bounce you to the game over screen just by one touch. To beat them, your only chance is to get Getapix's magic potion. Sometimes he appears on top and drops a little, so Asterix will be more powerful than the Tasmanian Devil. This game looks less forced and has a lot of great ideas integrated, but also have a really annoying element. There's no recovery time for the soldiers. If you have beaten them or they have beaten you, they spawn into your face immediately, and if Obelix is not nearby, then... Of course, the cooperative gameplay is a fresh idea and gives a lot to the challenge. But I can't really understand why there is no real-time cooperative mode with 2 players, like with G.I. Joe Cobra Strike or Action Force as it was called in Europe. In that game you had cooperative and versus mode as well. In my opinion, for this duo, a cooperative beat'em-up would be the most suitable, and with a lot of restrictions it could be done on this system. But of course I know that the very first game of the genre, called Kung Fu Master, was released 1 year later. In short, they had deserved more creativity. The game about Taz was never released outside the borders of North America, but in a restricted amount they released the NTSC version of Asterix and Obelix. They are really valuable collector items there. For the next episode, let's talk about something everyone knows, but just a few really understands. Let's boost the pot meter and examine the very first game controller.